All right, we are live here in the first Facebook Live that Ashley and I are going to do. We're very excited. Thank you for joining us today on whatever platform you're on. We're streaming on Facebook and Instagram right now, and we're going to get right to it. I want to introduce to you Ashley Mayer. I met her probably about 2 months ago or so. We shared a stage in another Facebook Live in a group that we're both a part of. And we really saw that we share a lot of stuff in common as couples coaches. And we knew almost immediately we needed to do something together. So we've set up this Zoom today, or this broadcast today. And the topic today is 3 reasons men say no to marriage help and what wives can do to change the narrative on that. So Ashley, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a bit about what you do, and then let's get into those 3 reasons.
Yes, thank you, Keith. My name is Ashley Mayer of Ashley Mayer Dance Connection. I am a relationship and marriage coach, and what I do is a little different than most coaches. I have what's called a dance-based coaching method, where I get you up off the couch and into each other's arms for a more active alternative to traditional couples therapy and coaching. So that's where I'm a longtime dancer. I've been teaching and competing in dance myself for about 18 years. And I'm just taking those lessons and experience I've had with thousands of couples on the dance floor and bringing it into the marriage world.
Okay, do any of those women that come to you for dance classes, do any of them have difficulty, or what percentage of them have some difficulty or resistance from their husbands even coming to a dance class with them?
Quite a bit. Not, I can't say everybody. A lot of times guys are just as excited to join, but I would say when I see a couple come in, the majority of the time it's the woman who is sort of dragging her husband in, or he maybe said, fine, for your birthday, I'll get you some dance lessons finally. So it's a pretty common objection among men, is they just like, I don't want to shake my hips and prance around a floor. But they soon realize, they soon realize it's actually very much different than that. And dancing really actually appeals to the masculine nature much more. Partner dancing, I should say, maybe ballet and things like that, not so much, but partner dancing really does appeal to the masculine nature and the problem solving topic and thing, all that. So I find that guys quickly turn their minds around for partner dancing specifically.
Excellent. You and I are both strategic. That's something we realized when we were talking last time. We're strategic, and we have to be strategic. And when we're working with couples where one spouse, typically it's the male, the husband, one spouse is resistant to getting that outside help. And we have talked with several couples over the years and helped develop strategies for them. But help us understand what's behind that resistance for the husbands. What are these 3 reasons you have for us today?
Yeah, of course. And the reason we're even having this conversation, like you said, is because this is a common, I'd say, complaint. A lot of times women say, I want to go to a counselor. I want to go get help. We need some help in our marriage, but my husband refuses. He says no. And this can be a real, standoff in marriages, because one wants this and the other says we don't need it. And I would never do that. So you and I decided we just wanted to dive into these reasons why, but specifically talking to the women, because I think having some understanding around this will help them, will help them change that narrative, help them understand, first of all, where it's coming from, and then moving them into a healthier point so they can find some change and help. So really when of course, first of all, we should say that we're using some blanket references here. We're saying men versus women. And we all know that no one is the same. And sometimes these roles are very switched. But in general, and studies have been done, many men tend to be the more resistant when it comes to reaching for outside help. So for that sake, we're going to be speaking about that, but don't come at us. I don't want to go to therapy. I hate therapy. I don't want to talk. My husband actually wants to. That, of course, that's going to be out there. That's going to happen. But for the sake of today's discussion, we're going to be speaking about men and women kind of blanketly. So anyway,
I'll add one thing to that. I've been doing this for 30 years and lots of intensives with couples. I've only ever had 2 people walk out of a session or discontinue, and they were both females. So but definitely been more that had some difficulty
Yeah.
getting their husband in the
Yeah.
session. So, okay, what's that first reason then?
So, well, I think it boils down to three general categories. Either
Okay.
these resistances are coming from a societal standpoint or a biological or experiential. So, I wanted to talk first about societal. The difficulty for most men when it comes to seeking professional help is the stigma and social construct that men need to have it all together and can't ask for help, because if they do, this signals failure and weakness. And this is really where I think the main societal impact lies for men, which is failure. I've failed in this relationship, something that's so important to me. So therefore, seeking outside help is going to just validate that, right? Failure. Because for centuries, really, men have been conditioned to display strength and minimize vulnerability from a young age, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. My mind immediately goes to I'm a failure.
Yeah.
Immediate. It's so strong and so quick. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So, with this ingrained belief that they should just man up and deal with it themselves. And when it comes to relationships, there's a prevalent message that relationships are intuitive, right? Through our culture, whether that's through, Hollywood, Disney movies, romantic comedies, or whatever. We just want to believe that there's going to be a fairy tale happy ending. Once I find my person, life is going to be figured out, right? So this idea that relationships are intuitive, and you and I know, and there's reasons that there are hundreds of thousands of counselors and coaches out there, because relationships aren't intuitive. So kind of helping him understand that it's an important thing to do, but because it can be really damaging when a couple starts to hit those roadblocks if they think this should be intuitive, therefore I've failed.
Yeah.
So if wives can understand that that's where this part of this is coming from, is that I don't want to admit to a failure. I don't think we have failed, and we're not ready to seek out for what they think is a last resort.
I don't think it's intuitive. What it sounds like in my head, which is the exact same thing in my head, it's if you want this better and I want this better, then it'll just happen, right? That's that
Yes.
intuitive piece. You want
Yes.
better, I want it better. So we'll both just kind of do maybe what we're supposed to do, and it will happen. But there are skills behind relationships that need to
Right.
be taught,
Yes.
practiced, mastered.
Exactly. Exactly. The whole love is all you need
Right.
mentality, as beautiful as that seems, it's just not the truth.
We can blame the Beatles for that, right?
Right. Right.
Okay.
We need more, a little bit more than love to make this to the finish line. So yeah.
So
But
what's the right wife's response then? How can a wife respond knowing that her husband has these societal pressures and messages on him? What does she need to get through this?
well, I think the answer to this roadblock for wives is to really help their husbands reframe this idea of support equals failure, right? So instead, reframing support equals failure to support equals mastery, or more specifically, I like to say coaching equals mastery. Now, for the sake of today's discussion, I kind of want to focus more on coaching, because that's what you and I do. We're marriage and relationship coaches. And then, while all roads lead to Rome, per se, therapy and coaching are very different journeys to that destination. But that's a topic for another day. But let's just focus on now the word coaching equals mastery, because that's easier for us to understand. But the truth is that we all, except in the field of sports and arts and business, we find that this understanding is, coaching does equal mastery. I'm going to get a coach for my son's basketball team. I'm going to get a coach to help me learn how to do Facebook ads or business better, right? That's accepted. Whereas we don't extend that truth to the idea of coaching in marriages. So, take, for example, there's a little boy who's displaying some super athletic tendencies. He's just a natural. He's good with the ball. He's a fast runner, but he's never played a sport. We'll say soccer. He's never played soccer. He doesn't know the rules. He doesn't know the technique needed to play. Would you go up to that little boy and say, who has no formal experience, and would you say, I'm sorry, son, but I'm afraid you're a failure at soccer? because it's obvious you need help to learn these skills. So because you need help, because you need a coach, that means you're a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. You would never say that to that little boy. And in fact, it would be completely flipped. The acquisition of a coach would be seen as a serious commitment, investment towards this child's future success.
And
So
belief in them, right?
yes, exactly. A belief. And so hiring a coach is a no-brainer. It doesn't mean at all that this child has failed. It just means you see potential. Let's get him to the finish line. Let's make him even better. That I think we can all agree that any top athlete got there because they just walked onto a field and one day they're at the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
Patrick Mahomes is in at the Super Bowl on Sunday because he's just a natural.
I want to interject with a post I saw this morning of Travis Kelce. It stuck out because one, it didn't mention Taylor Swift in it at all, but the fact that it actually talks about coaching and his value of having a coach. Travis Kelce on Coach Andy Reid says, "I've been here 13 years with Coach Reid and he's never got off track. It's been a constant incline of greatness. I owe so much to him and our success. Just extremely fortunate that I landed here in Kansas City to be able to build this thing with him. Just no one on that team got there without their coach."
Right.
Created greatness.
Yes, exactly. Greatness. And I think if we can take this idea of coaching equals mastery into our relationships, into our marriages specifically, because this is the most important relationship you have. This is the most important job for you to master. We can kind of think of this idea of bringing in a professional to help us in a different way. So I think sometimes for women, I know if you can approach this and help him understand that this doesn't mean you're a failure. And I don't think you're a failure. I think I would just like to have a more satisfying, better relationship. Like we can't do this on our own. We're trying. Let's do better. Right?
When you said that, I thought, how many times does the wife start with why? Why won't you go to counseling, or why don't you go to coaching with me? And I just pictured in my mind saying, I believe in you.
Yeah.
And what we could have can be great. And then walking away.
Yeah.
And leaving that on his mind to think about. He will come back. Oh, what did you mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, it's that thing I've been talking about, us maybe getting some coaching. It would really benefit us. But because I believe I see the potential in you, in us, and I want to go there. And he will approach it so differently,
Yeah, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. So first, I think that's really the solution to that first roadblock there is bringing understanding, not only to your husbands, but to yourself, and how you can approach this in a very, very different manner. There's no failure in admitting you need help to acquire a new skill.
Right. Yeah, it's very good. Okay, what's the second category? What resistance falls under?
Yeah, this one's a big one, I think. Biological. So there are some biological reasons why men resist outside help and women don't. So men are biologically more solution focused and action oriented, which is why the prospect of sitting and talking to a professional about problems and feelings is inherently uncomfortable. Because when it comes to feelings for men, especially, there really aren't answers, per se to a feeling. They're just something you have to experience and articulate, and which can be very uncomfortable experience. So when he's just wired to find a solution, there might not be a solution in those moments. So that's a lot of times where that pushback is found. There's been lots of studies proving that in general, for females, discussing a problem without jumping to a solution actually makes the problem more manageable. It serves as a relief valve for their stress or their frustration in that moment. We all know this typical story we laugh about. There's videos about it, about, a woman comes in from home and she's had a really rough day at work, or the kids have been crazy and the dog pooped all the floor. That happened to me yesterday. So I know that. And she just wants to tell her husband, really, she just wants the support, and she wants him to feel say, oh gosh, that must've been so hard. I'm sorry you had to go through that. But what happens is she tells him the story and he says, well, this is what you should have done. This is how to fix it. And inevitably we get so frustrated as women because we're like, that's not what I needed. And it's just a biological difference there. It doesn't mean he doesn't care about you. Right.
Right.
Have you experienced this?
Oh yeah. I'm going through my mind the times I would jump in and want to offer the solution or the idea of what could make it better.
Yeah.
Behind that, wanting to see relief
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and help her out, but it wasn't received that way, though the motive was that. And then, like you said, the wife might think things like, he doesn't care
Yes.
about what's going on. He just wants to fix me.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like you said, that's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. It is a biological difference. And again, this isn't true for every man and every woman. There can be different forms of a whole masculine feminine balance, but this is a very common one, and one we tend to read wrong in our partners. So I think too, when it comes to therapy, comes to reaching out for help, this is partly why traditional therapy, traditional talk therapy, counseling is more appealing to a woman, because it fits really within her wheelhouse of what works for her communication and connection styles. It makes her feel better to talk about these things. And again, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I want to fix it. So are you there?
I'm there. Yep.
Oh, sorry. You froze a little bit. Wanted to make sure
okay.
On my end. So yeah, that's a big one, is if we can just understand. There are more biological, but for today, we just really wanted to hit one point in each.
Okay. So how might that wife then, like what it means to her when he jumps in to try and fix it or resists, shows that resistance towards sitting in an office or jumping into a Zoom and stuff? How does she typically take it?
I think firstly, the answer to this one is for wives to understand that this is his way. This is the way his brain and biology are programmed to support you. So if you can understand, this is how he's trying to support you, not tell you you're mixed up or fix you, right? So his reluctance to jump into counseling or coaching isn't coming from a state of not caring about you or the relationship at all. It's just that his brain talk doesn't equal a resolution.
Right.
So if you can understand that first before getting upset at him, if you can understand where this resistance is coming from, it will give you a better idea of how to approach the situation in a more solution-based approach, which he's going to relate to better. And I know we were speaking about this the other day, is instead of just who knows how long this is going to take, we just need help, right? That's too vague. If we can talk about some logistics and some solutions and maybe even a time frame, that's so much more. He can relate to that, right? Like maybe I can think about this as an option.
Definitely. So often a wife, her goal, intended or not, is focused on, we got to get to coaching. We've got to get outside help for this. And so the question is always there. Will you come? Will you attend? If I find the person, will you come? And they think they're trying all these different angles. Sometimes I suggest them as a strategy. Find out what your husband's solution might be to the problem. Make sure you both understand what the problem is that you want to address. And so you stand in side by side looking out at the problem. It's not him, not her necessarily. What is that problem? And then, ask, if we talk about this again in a week, you have some ideas or some solutions of what we could do to improve that area. He might have something to contribute that might make enough of a shift that you're feeling better and hopeful about the situation. Approaching it that way without just hitting, we got to get help, because again, you're hammering that, you're triggering those thoughts and feelings in him that he's a failure. What if you approached it as, hey, what solutions do you have to this? That acknowledges and allows for his biological difference, which is to find a solution, offer it, and say, let's try that for a month. Let's try that for a couple of weeks. And if it doesn't work, can we revisit this conversation and then think about maybe going to outside help? But you're showing that belief in him that he has the ability to solve problems.
Right.
And you're going to invite him in to suggest whatever he comes to mind. And you go along with it. Yeah,
exactly. And I love what you just said there too, and maybe it snuck it in, is that sometimes just understanding these differences, even these first two differences, might lead to a really beneficial healing conversation for you both, that you realize maybe we don't need that outside help right now.
Right.
Or maybe we do, but it comes from a different place. So that's really, and that would be a really exciting point for you to hit. And
Because a person will think of coaching as, we can't talk, we got to get to someone where we can talk.
yes,
But if we approach it this way and you have that talk, now you're like, I wanted to go to coaching because we couldn't talk, but we just had this really good talk, and your brain starts reorganizing itself to say, maybe we can.
Yeah. You start feeling more connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I'm a woman, to say that I haven't been in this exact situation would be a lie. You know, to be honest, I'm talking to you. When we get that pushback in this area specifically, it hurts. It hurts. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because we interpret it as a sign that he doesn't care about us, doesn't care about me, or he doesn't care about our relationship the way I do. And that is simply not true, like we just discussed about. So if you know, I know from experience, when I'm in this state of mind, I don't always lead from compassion in my conversation, right? It's easy to react to him out of that hurt, just like you said earlier. Why don't you always do this? Why not? You know, and it becomes this disappointment, again, piling it on top of him. So, and we end up criticizing. So that's the thing. If we can just take a step back and realize it's not about us right now. It's not about us at all. We're just approaching this from a different angle. We see this problem from different angles. And it's actually not a weakness. We need that in each other. We need to be able to see from different angles to get things figured out.
Do you have any tips for women on how to get to that point? Like, does journaling help? Writing down on a piece of paper, getting it outside of you, talking to friends necessarily? Is that a good idea? But how do you get to that point where you're okay with it? Recognize it's not about me.
Those are all really good tips. I think every person's going to lean to one solution over the other. And this is why it's so good to have a personal professional to help you find that if it's something you've never done before.
Okay.
But I think the first step is just taking a step out of it. Women are emotional creatures, and we do tend to lead with that. So if we can slow down our heart rates, we can take a step back and mentally put ourselves in our husband's shoes, and think, well, you know what? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I know that he loves me. He married me. We have children. We have this beautiful home. He's told me that. I have to believe him. I know he loves me. So maybe this is coming from somewhere else. And if you can first allow that in your own mind, that curiosity to see maybe there's something else there, then you'll be able to, well, basically just calm down and reach a steadier state of mind. So for me, journaling, writing specifically is my best, because I'm not the greatest at speaking when I'm passionate or very upset and my heart's pounding, I'm flooded. I can't talk. Everything I say is the wrong thing. And I'm always going to trigger him. Even when I think I'm saying the right words, my emotion is read as a threat. So for me, I have to write it out. And sometimes I have to read what I wrote to him for what I truly mean to come forward. So find one of those coping mechanisms that will help you.
Okay. That's great. How about the third area?
Experiential. So this is a common one. Many men have misgivings about professionals simply because of a personal past bad experience, or because of a friend or close relative or family member's bad experience. So this is an experience that has been had by either themselves or someone else has just shut that door, right? So I've experienced this. My husband particularly he felt this way when we were first dating, because he had an awful experience with a counselor in his previous marriage that really did a number on him. And of course, he didn't lead with that the first time we talked about how do you feel about therapists or counselors or professionals. But I soon came to realize that his refusal to seek professional help. Now, we weren't having problems at the time. It was just a conversation. And I remember being like, what? It didn't mean that he wasn't willing or eager to work on our relationship or do what was needed to thrive in the marriage, we weren't married yet, but he had, he just had some open wounds there, and he really needed to be healed. And in that moment, we needed to find a different solution outside of the traditional form of couples counseling because it just wasn't going to be an option for him at the moment. And when I understood that, it, initially when he gave me that reaction, I had, oh no, is this a red flag? We always talk about red flags in society right now. Something that kind of irks me a little bit. But is this a red flag? He doesn't believe in counseling. But that wasn't the truth at all. He is actually the most teachable man. He loves learning about relationship psychology and all of this stuff. We talk about it constantly. But had I just taken his word for it and not understood where that hurt was, that experience that he had and validated it for him, we would have been, potentially at odds with one another. So that's one of them. The other one is we give a lot of weight to the opinions and experiences of our inner circle. Right? Yeah. The influence of our close friends and family has a huge impact on how we believe and act. So if your husband's been hearing about the nightmare of an experience his best friend had with couples therapy, then of course, this is going to affect his opinion on the matter. John says, absolutely never, don't do it. This is what's going to happen. It ruined my marriage, whatever that might be. So therefore, there's this belief and thinking. We are a very referral-based society. So if you're getting a bad referral, don't do this. Again, we're going to take that as a, going to rethink this thing. So that's another reason is an experiential blocks that they may have around this.
Yep. Good. And the solution for that, I got a little bit ahead there, but.
Solution. I mentioned this in the last one, but this is a big one. And I think it's one of the most powerful tools is curiosity. Curiosity. So for women, I think it's the most powerful tool in our arsenal as wives for giving our husbands room to open up to us. Genuine curiosity about what he's experiencing. So instead of jumping in with, why don't you, or you always do this types of comments, which are
so you just mentioned genuine curiosity. And I thought, I wonder why she put the word genuine there. What is not genuine? But then when you gave the example of the why, there's an interrogative approach to questioning where you're already guilty before you even give your answer. So that genuine is truly, I'm asking to understand, not asking to make a point, right? Getting to that point.
Exactly. Because we think, oh, I did ask him why. I did, but our tone of voice, the way that we say it is very much implied and read through our partner. They know us well. So when we kind of do that you and type of commentary, then the reaction isn't, and when the reaction isn't what we want, then it can cause them to take a massive step back and shut down. And I don't want to deal with this. They don't see me right now. So if we can take a step back, like I was mentioning earlier, and come from a place of curiosity, this is an opportunity to learn more about why our husband's putting up walls around this idea. So that's a big one, is just really take that. And I've used this before as well in my relationship. And I didn't necessarily always feel curious about his reasoning behind. I felt right. But if I said, I'm just going to give him the space, I'm going to ask him without interrogating him, why is that? Did you have a bad experience? Yeah, I had a bad experience. Oh, what happened there? Really using my facial expressions, using my hands, my body to language to speak to him non-verbally and give him that space to explain to me what happened and validating it. Wow, that must have been really hard. I'm so sorry you went through that. I can't imagine what that would feel like. I can understand where your resistance is coming from. That's such a powerful tool to really break down these walls.
And don't jump to, well, now I know, so now let's go to coaching.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let that simmer for a little while. Let him fully receive that acceptance and understanding, and no waiting for the other shoe to drop kind of thing.
Right.
Let it just sit there. You said a couple things just on this point that I was making notes on. When you first were talking about with your husband, you didn't know his reason for not wanting to go is because he had a real horrible experience with someone previous to that. he didn't lead with that. So having this conversation about what are we going to do when one of us senses that we need help, having that conversation before it reaches the tipping point.
Yes.
Find a time when things are going well. Store this away as on your list of conversations to get to. And when things are going well for a few days, say, hey, you know what? Everything's great right now. I like you
Yeah.
did this the other day. I liked experiencing this with you. But I know times are going to come when we're going to be at odds. We're not going to see each other's perspective or have a difficulty putting into words what we're feeling, what we're needing. And we'll probably benefit at times like that with outside help. What are your thoughts on that? And bring the curiosity in a non-conflict
Right.
time. And
Yeah.
few couples do that. Right?
Exactly.
It reaches the boiling point.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's very difficult to manage. And you got to,
Right.
yeah,
There's no thinking clearly in those moments, right?
no.
When those feelings and emotions are so heightened.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So having those plans is such a good it's a good tool to have in your tool belt for marriage for sure.
Yep. Yeah, we need those. All right. So those are the three reasons: societal, biological, and experiential.
Yes.
And we titled this "What a Wife Can Do to Change the Narrative" on that. And we've touched on several things along the way. Do you want to summarize those or bring in something new?
A quick summary of them is just bring understanding for yourself, understand where he's coming from in each of these categories, and then take a step back and realize it's not about you, not about you in the way you're making it about you, so that you
Mhm.
can approach these situations, take a step back, ask for what you want from a vulnerable position and place, but soft, with curiosity, with compassion. But really, I think this all boils down to the power of influence that a woman has with her husband. And this is we need to let our husbands influence us, and he needs to let us influence him. This is a part of working as a team and making good choices. So that's another thing I really wanted to touch on, was this power of influence. And I think you mentioned this the other day when we were talking. A lot of times women don't actually come out and ask for what they want or what they need or what their desire is. I would desire for us to have a better relationship. I desire for our communication to be better, our connection to be stronger and deeper. So they think that they've asked this because they've said, something's missing, I
Right.
need more. They think that they've said this, but they really haven't said it, right? They haven't actually come out and asked for that thing. They haven't expressed that expectation of what they want in the marriage. So, or again, they might think he's never going to say yes.
Right.
I heard him one time say he hated counselors.
Yeah.
And so I know he's going to tell me no. So again, they keep that back, and then they build up more and more resentment because they just didn't ask for this thing. But the thing is that we have influence over our husband. He loves us. He wants to hear us. He wants to stay connected to us. So if we can understand that we have the power to influence our husbands so much more than we think, then and I'm not talking about manipulation or coercion, I'm talking about genuine influence based on communicating our true desires versus our disappointments. So when we take that gentle, compassionate, curious approach, he's much more likely to actually listen instead of shutting you down. And it might not be, you're right, honey, let's go, let's book it tomorrow. Maybe it's a
Right.
day, maybe it takes a few hours, maybe it's a week. But these things will sit with him, and they're going to marinate, and they're going to find their way into his brain and his body. And he will, a lot of times, you will be surprised. He'll be so open to this idea. So don't count him out, I would
Yep.
say.
You and I have experienced that so much when we've faced these situations where one spouse is resistant, and we
Yes.
discuss these things, we give them strategies, and they are so shocked that, well, they think I've been trying this. I've been trying to get them to come, and now they come. Well, we're helping them leverage their influence. And I think, as you were talking about it, influence creates an atmosphere.
Yes.
And you said it's one where there's curiosity, there's acceptance, that that you're different biologically, you're solution focused. So you create that through influence, you create an atmosphere, and then in time, that works on the husband. And the husbands, like they will surprise their wife and say, "Hey, you're not going to believe what I just did, but I looked up, went online and searched counselors, and I think I might have found one." That can happen in the
Yes.
darkest, toughest of
Yes.
situations that a wife is in. When she influences the atmosphere, he will step up. And one way to influence the atmosphere, you've mentioned it, you've used the word desire, and there is a huge difference in the impact the word need versus the word desire has on a husband. When you
Yeah.
say, I need this from you,
Mm-hmm.
it starts to tap into that I'm a failure. I haven't been giving you something you need. But
Right.
if you say, I desire, that's the champion in him. I want to rise up. You desire that. I want to give that to you. There is something in a man that wants to give. And so if that's an opportunity to work through something and outside help, I'll I'll work towards giving that to you. So using the word desire, replacing need more. I say there's I forget how many I say. Is it only three things we need? Food, water, and air. Really,
Mhm.
that is all we
Yes.
need. So
Yeah.
many times when I'm working with couples, I need this, I need this, I need this. You don't really? You
Yeah.
don't. You will live without that. Now, do you desire it? Oh yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you desire it? Well, it's like an 8. Not everything is a 10. Not
Right.
everything is a 10. That's a sign that you're in that good place of influence when you see not everything's a 10, and you can present it to him as
Yeah.
maybe a 7 in importance to you or in desire, and a 10, and he has a choice what he wants to put his energy towards. That's a good little fact there. But we really only need three things in life. In relationship, a lot of that stuff we desire, and we can develop the skills and the healthy heart in us to make those things happen. So use the word desire more
I
than
love that.
need when you're talking to your husband.
Exactly. Because vulnerability and compassion only breeds vulnerability and compassion. So if women can
Say that
start,
again.
vulnerability and compassion only breeds vulnerability and compassion. So women need to show that more to their husbands. If you
Mm-hmm.
can come from that place, he's going to mirror that back to you. And it might not sound like yes, honey, yes, dear, whatever you want. You don't really want that anyway. But if you just give it a minute, it will sink in. I actually have a story about this specific influence.
Okay.
Do we have time?
Oh, we got time. Yep.
Okay. So in my marriage, when I have a story from my husband about him accepting influence from me in a really delicate area of his life, one I didn't really think was going to happen. So I'm a stepmother. My husband has 2 children from a previous marriage. So early in our relationship, one of the most difficult things for me to navigate was what I perceived as a parenting fail on his end when it comes to discipline and follow through with his kids. That's a pretty sticky subject for someone kind of coming into a pre-existing, family and relationship.
Yeah.
So when I would see him let his son in particular walk all over him, without any type of
Oh,
consequence for his actions, I would get worked up and angrily point out his need to discipline them more, that they need to have consequences. They need to be disciplined more. Well, that went just about as well as you'd guess it would from an outsider criticizing a parent. And even when I thought I was, watching my tone, he would get so defensive, understandably so. And immediately he'd shut down on me. And I could just sense this distance growing, especially around this topic of his children and who are so important to him. And he'd say things like, I know I'm a terrible father. You don't have to keep pointing it out to me, which, really gutted me because that's a very
yeah.
telling statement. And I didn't think he was a terrible father. He's an amazing father. But do you see how off that was going? I thought I was helping him, but it was not helping. So it took me some time to realize I really had to do my work on my own part. And I was working with a stepmom coach, which actually helped me with this too. It took me some time to realize that everything about my approach was way off. So once I took a step back to think about it and put myself in his shoes, I realized the pain and desire around his choices with his kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it completely changed my outlook and story about his actions, the story I was telling about myself, about why he was choosing to not discipline them, be just such a little, there's actually a term for it called Disneyland dad for for fathers. There's a reason this happens. And it's because he was a single father. He's lucky to see his kids 40% of the time at best, and not by choice. It's just the circumstances of sometimes what happens in the divorce. And he had a massive amount of guilt and failure behind that. It was huge for him. It was sitting right there every time they'd walk in that door. He missed them so much. So when it came to them coming to our house, he just wanted to enjoy them. And he wanted for them to be as happy as possible while they were with us, so that he could soak up and make the most of that time. He didn't want to spend it fighting over, disrespectful remarks and sibling rivalry and things like that. He wanted to be the loving father that they missed the other 60% of their lives. So I changed my tactic. And I realized, I am the problem here, not him. So I changed my tactic. And when I'd see, his son scream at my husband or call him a bad word or push his sister down the stairs and lie about it, because that's what little boys do, right? Yep. I let him do his thing. And in the moment, I bring it alone. Leave it alone. And then I bring it up later. Bring my observations up later when we were alone, away from the kids, and I'd say things like, wow, this must be so hard. I can't imagine how hard this must be for you to only have this short time with them. And I can't imagine how that must feel for you. And I'd start to empathize with the strain and weight of it all, and admit that if I were in his shoes, I'd want to keep things light when they were here with us, have fun, make sure they're experiencing all these moments. I could really see that. I'd always try to open it up with understanding around that. And then instead of criticizing, I began to talk about my manipulative ways as a child, because I was the worst, and my need for strict boundaries and consequences. That ended up helping me feel safer and secure in my own family. So these things were really big. This is how I was raised. My parents were tough on me, and I'm so grateful they were. I needed it. So when I started kind of speaking about that myself and my experiences with having stricter rules and boundaries and consequences, he would listen. But here's the kicker. I began to say we. So I would say, maybe we should talk about some better ways to handle Jock's behavior in the future, so he knows that this is going to be unacceptable, to hurt his sister or whatever. And I'd stay really calm, and I'd do my best not to point out what he did wrong. I wouldn't even bring up the thing that he did. That sometimes I did. I'm not perfect. I did sometimes, but I would try. Let's not bring that up. Let's just talk about some other options that we can talk about now before this happens again. And after these types of conversations, it would sometimes take a day or two for my husband to come back to me. But he would always, once I changed this, he'd come back to me, maybe later that day, the next day, even a week. And he'd say, I've been thinking about what you're talking about, and you're really right. We do need to do this. He's my son. I want to teach him and train him to be a man. Or a lot of times, this has happened a lot recently too. He'll say, I had a talk with Jock. I talked with him. Oh yeah, I talked with him right after what we had talked about, and let him know that after X, Y, and Z, if he does it again, we're going to take his phone or his device, or there's going to be a consequence. And there were never consequences before. And it was so powerful, because I realized this is what, Dr. John Gottman talks about in the seven principles book for marriage success. That's a big one, is accepting influence. And it wasn't about me being right or him being wrong. It was about us looking at it together as a team. And he constantly says, thank you for helping me raise them. Thank you for that. And that wasn't something I was getting before.
Right.
I didn't deserve it. So I kind of have a long story, but things like that, it's powerful. The words we speak as wives are powerful, and they have an effect. So it's just about how we approach it.
Yeah. I made a note when you were talking that you came to him with your observations, not your judgments of something being right or wrong, right? And when that person gets receives what they need, which is by communicating what you observed, you're saying, I see you.
Yes.
And I'm okay with you, with your character flaws, your weaknesses, the patterns you've brought into this. And you communicate that by not putting judgment on them, not being critical about them. When a person gets that message of, I see you and I'm okay with you, it doesn't mean what you did was okay,
Yeah.
but we're okay and we're going to get through this. That is exactly the experience and encounter and exchange and relationship that prompts the changes that you're hoping for and that they need to make. And it happens time and time again when people get in that place. So for those watching this, just know, like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years, and when I listen to Ashley, I know she's done her own personal work in her private life to get to that point. It's not easy. It wasn't just boom, oh, now I know how to create a good atmosphere. Now I know how to calm down. I put on Selena Gomez, Calm Down, and it calms me down magically. No, there's a lot of work behind that she's done. And I say that to say, well done to you. And also, if anyone is looking for someone to help them, wives especially, to be more influential in their relationship with their partner, Ashley is someone to talk to. So Ashley, what can people do to connect with you?
So you follow me on my socials. I'm the same everywhere. You can find me on Instagram, IG, YouTube now. It's AM Dance Connection for Ashley Mayer Dance Connection. But really the best thing to do if you've got questions or you just don't know where to start, I would love to jump on just a call with anybody who is interested. Just jump on a free call with me. I'm not going to charge you anything. We can just talk about the things that you might need in your marriage and talk about some options that would work best for you to get help. I can get my eyes. I can take a step back from where you are in your position and circumstances right now, give you another set of eyes and say, hey, maybe you think about trying this out. And maybe you don't need us. Maybe you do. There's so many other options out there that people don't realize are available, affordable, not crazy time consuming, but that will make a huge difference. So I love to jump on a call with anyone. We've put the link in the comments over here for you can just hit that link, schedule a call with me, and we'll be off to the races.
Good. You mentioned it. You said it quickly, but I heard you say you went and sought the help of a step parent coach, probably helping with blended families, kind of things, all of that. So when I say she's done the work, she's done exactly what she's telling you to do here and suggesting you to do here. And you see the benefit of it. You want what she has. And her and I both, we're not perfect. And we can talk about some of the highlights and the benefits of the work we've done, but they've only come out of those moments where we weren't living it out well and succeeding in the ways that we wanted. And so outside help often helps. So look her up on all the socials. She's got that free call in the comments. If you want to talk with me, I've got, you can schedule a call with me at my website, keith.coach, and there'll be a scheduling button there. And I think we'll call it a wrap. I did write down 3 words. I like having 3 words as takeaways.
Love that.
Husbands watching this, I want the word for you to think about is failure, but thinking this isn't a message that I'm a failure. Fight the feeling of failure so you can be the husband that your wife desires you, not needs you, desires you to be. So overcome that fear of failure. Even if you fail, you're not going to die. You can, so face it and move ahead and move beyond it. And then for wives, curious, and influence the atmosphere of the relationship in the ways that Ashley suggested. So go back and watch this. If you want to know when our next live broadcast is going to be, you can follow Ashley on any of the socials that she mentioned, or look us up on Facebook and get notifications for future events. Any final words, Ashley? Encouragements?
Just coaching equals mastery, guys. Just reframe it in your brains. Coaching equals mastery. It's not regular. That's it.
I like that. I want to throw that banner up again.
Yeah.
There we go. Coaching
Yes.
equals mastery. All right. Thanks for your time for watching. Ashley, thanks for all the work you've put into presenting today and getting these pieces together for us and sharing both professionally and personally what you've done in this area of influence and helping your husband as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.